Right, okie dokie, let's get going, let's do this, let's talk about transfers one final time. Celtic are finished in the transfer window. Well, everybody's finished in the transfer window. It's shut, it's done, it's over. There's no more signings to be made. We have our final squad from now until the January transfer window opens. And sadly, it means it's the end of Celtic transfer talk for a little while. So let's go out with a bang. Let's do one final spectacular today and round up the entire transfer window. Give my opinions as to whether or not we've done enough in this rebuild transfer window. Before we go any further with the video, please make sure to check out the top line of the description and download the OneFootball app using my link. OneFootball will keep you in the loop between now and January if there's any news, if there's any rumours, if there's any stories. Also, just to keep you up to date with fixtures, results, everything you need to know in the world of football, not just Celtic, all in that one place. And by using my link, you're helping out me and the channel sponsor. So please make sure to check out the OneFootball app. Also, we are so close to 30,000 subscribers. What? I just choked on my word there as I say that. I don't know what happened there. We are also so close to 30,000 subscribers, which is absolutely mad. If you haven't, please hit that big red subscribe button and we can probably get there over the next week. Love you guys. Thanks very much. So the transfer window is over. Celtic have completed all their business and yeah, that's it. A bit of a deadline day spectacular in a way. I mean, I think we done what looked to be the bare minimum. Then we had a wee surprise right as the window was closing. I was out having a drink. I was at a gig last night, so I was just kind of keeping up through updates on a very bad signal inside Firewater. But yeah, we made the kind of signings we expected, and Giacomakis and Jota, and then we brought in that surprise of Cameron Carter-Vickers, which kind of went through such a story yesterday. It looked as though it wasn't going to happen, and there was talk it would happen, and then Spurs didn't want to loan him out, and now he's joined Celtic, I believe, with an option to buy come the end of the season, which is a bit of business I'm very happy with. But I do think we need to watch ourselves and saying, you know, just because we pulled that off right at the deadline, because we pulled that off at midnight, that it was a good enough bit of business on transfer day on the whole, on deadline day on the whole, sorry. I feel like Celtic still had so much to do. We should have identified that, and we went in doing something that, you know, wasn't a surprise to many. You know, we were making those bare minimum signings. We knew that Giacomakis was coming in. We knew that Jota was coming in. These weren't stories that, you know, they weren't new to us. As Giacomakis has been a couple of weeks in the making now. You know, this has been going on for ages. Jota has been a few days in the making as well. Celtic lost some key players in Ryan Christie and Odsonne-Edouard, and I feel like we've now got a squad which, yeah, starting 11-wise looks good. I think it's a good enough squad to go, a good enough starting 11 to go and challenge for the league title, but you look beyond that and you start to think of Celtic having injury issues, COVID issues, and all the rest of it. We still have ourselves in a position where there's still a lot of improvement needed, and we'll talk about that. I don't think the board have fully realised the significance of a rebuild. Now, a lot of people will be watching this with the mindset, oh, you can't please you can't please this majority of this portion of the fans. We've just went and spent 20 odd million pounds, we've brought in 12 new signings, and you still aren't happy. Yeah, okay, I do understand that. It's a very valid point that we've made 12 signings, and fair play that the board have went out and made those 12 signings. Still is not enough though, and you've got to remember a lot of these signings, when you look at Origide, you look at Liam Shaw, you look at guys like that, they've not been used by Ange Postecoglou yet in a competitive game. They're very much players who I think are going to be in and around that B team this season, or are just not getting a kick for the first team anyway, because they're simply not at that level. So you then start to narrow it down to how many signings we've made for our first team, and the number does start to dwindle down a little bit. And then you think of players who've left the club, which we've seen some big names leave. We've seen Scott Brown leave, seen Odsonne-Edouard leave, Ryan Christie leave. You know, some big names. You know, you start to weigh up the numbers, and suddenly when you look at the 12 signings, it doesn't start to feel like 12 signings. It starts to feel a lot less than 12 signings, in fact. So I think that the board have shortchanged the manager a little bit. Now, let's, you know, people who'll be wanting to back up the board here and sympathise for the board and say they've done their bit, yous are just, you know, whinging bastards that can't be happy. Right, okay, fair enough. I'll allow you to have that opinion for a moment. But let's just remember that this was a manager, last week, our manager, Ange Postecoglou, who stood in his post-match interview and said he needed more bodies through the door. He needed more bodies. He was crystal clear on that. He wanted more players, he needed more players, and ultimately needs a bigger squad to go and challenge for the league title. He didn't hide away from that. He was open about that. And as a Celtic fan, I was very happy to hear that, because he was sending a very clear message to the board in my eyes. He was sending a message of, we need more bodies in this door if we want to go and win this league title, if you want me to go and succeed and do what you've brought me in to do. Now, in that space of time between him saying that and the transfer window shutting, yes, we brought in more bodies. We made 3 more signings. 3 more players also left in that period of time as well. So suddenly you're weighing it up and you're going, well, nothing's changed. We didn't bring in extra bodies because we lost bodies. This was before Edouard and Christie had left the club. And to be honest, I know that he'll know more. It's what's going on behind closed doors, but this was before the talk started building that it was definitely going to happen. Edouard, at this point in time, there was still a conversation going on that Edouard might have stayed at the club. So, this was before all of that. Suddenly, numbers haven't changed. Celtic are in the same position with the amount of personnel they've got in the door, and you could say they've not really replaced in certain areas. Now, in the central of midfield, we've got a cracking number of players there. We've got a good few. You've got David Turnbull, you've got Tom Rogic, you've got Callum McGregor. 3 great players. What happens when McGregor gets injured this season? Because James McCarthy doesn't look as though he's going to be fit. I don't think he's going to be a reliable player in terms of fitness. So what happens if McGregor gets injured, or he's out with COVID, or we've drained him out of 60 games and he just can't kick a ball anymore? What's going to happen if McCarthy's not there? Are we expected to survive with Ismaila Soro? Because I'm suddenly losing a little bit of faith in how good Soro is. What happens if David Turnbull's injuries play up again? Ryan Christie's gone now. People are saying we've signed a Christie replacement. We signed Jota. That's not a Christie replacement. It's a Mohamed El Yunusi replacement. Ryan Christie wasn't a left winger. He played a couple of games in the left wing, but there is that naiveness, if that's the word, or naivety. Is that what it is? I can't think now. But there is that little bit of the support sometimes that, see somebody play there a couple of times, and they go, oh, he can play there. No, that's not the case. Jota is not a Ryan Christie replacement. We've not got a Ryan Christie replacement. And for as controversial as Ryan Christie is in the set of Celtic supporters, if you like him, if you don't like him, because I know a lot of people really like him, a lot of people really don't like him, and there are people in the middle. For as much as whatever side you're on, we've not replaced him. He's gone. And we've not brought in a player. Ryan Christie is a player of quality. And I'm putting aside for a moment his allegiance to the club, because, it was clear he didn't want to be here, but if you're talking just sheer footballing ability, it's going to be hard to replace that. Really hard to replace that. And we'll probably see that for Scotland over the next few games. It's going to be really hard to replace a player of that quality. We've not done it. So there is big question marks there of how prepared the board have let our manager be. And that's no sort of criticism at all to Ange Postecoglou. Absolutely not. We know for a fact that he's had a very limited approach in this. It's been, mostly worked by the board and how we spend and all the rest of it. So you suddenly are sitting there wondering, as the sirens go, you suddenly go, have they let the manager down? Because a part of me can't help but feel that they have. Now, to be on the positive side of things, because there's got to be plenty of people in the comments who think I just love to come on here and greet. That's not how I want to be this season. If anything, I've tried to be as upbeat as possible, but you can't help it. You can't just ignore the plain and obvious. You just can't ignore these big things, because over the course of a season, these things will come back to bite us. It's only a matter of time before we're all complaining about it in 6 months for saying, we never signed enough players. We may as well identify that now. We've not done that, and the process now needs to start to bring more players in January, to identify players for next season as well, perhaps on free contracts or whatever, but we've got to start that process now. To be more positive, am I happy with the business that Celtic have done in terms of the personnel? Yes, I think we've made some cracking signings. Kyogo Furuhashi, Liel Abada, Joe Hart, James McCarthy. There's a lot of names in there I'm very, very happy about. I'm very pleased that we've managed to secure the services of some of these guys, despite it not being, I think, enough for the squad this year, in terms of challenging and all the rest of it. We still can challenge, but, we're a ball head away for disaster, I think, if we lose somebody. But in terms of the individual personnel, we've made some really good signings and some very unique signings that nobody would have ever seen come to Celtic. Kyogo, none of us have ever heard of him this time last year. We wouldn't have expected to be signing players from the J League, but we've suddenly found ourselves a gem. So it is a bit of interesting recruitment this summer, and I'm a big fan of that. So I'm hoping that this process is going to be, trusted, and it is going to be seen out, and we're going to get the best from it. There's players there that I think are just going to be brilliant for Celtic, and we've already seen the glimpses of that before the window shuts. We just need to hope it carries on past the window shutting, and I really believe it will. The likes of Abada and Kyogo, some very interesting signings. They look to possess a lot of talent, and we've mixed it up a little bit in terms of how we've signed. You know, we've signed some youngsters like Abada, who are 19 years old. They're in the first team, but we've also signed players who are in their prime and are entering their prime. The likes of Kyogo being at 26 years of age. We've got James McCarthy, a little bit older too, experienced player. We've kind of mixed the bag a little bit, and I like that. We've got players who are at different ages, and it's going to offer a lot to Celtic in terms of now and the future. So I'm pleased in that aspect of things. On the way out, how much money Celtic have made over the last 12 months. I think we worked it out, not including PSG's sell-on for Edouard, profit percentage from Odsonne Edouard, and not including, including the potential add-ons. I think we worked it out yesterday on stream to be around £54 million, £54.5 million Celtic have made over the past year. That's unbelievable. And yet we haven't reinvested as much. It's never going to be like that at Celtic. It's just the way we are. But you're hoping we would have spent a bit more and got another 2 or 3 guys through the door in terms of, for a bit of depth. You see Ali McCann go to St Johnstone for £1 million. Why are we not going in with £1 million for Ali McCann? That's a bargain. There's a lot less of a risk in there and a much greater chance of reward spending £1 million on Ali McCann, who's now at Preston North End. We should be in there. And to an extent, I wouldn't say as much, maybe Mr. Kerr, Jason Kerr, but 500 grand, these are players that we should be making a bid for in terms of improving our squad. The young guys, especially McCann, but we haven't done it. But £54.5 million, phenomenal. It's a sin to see Edouard go. I'm going to miss him. Christie going. I mean, it was going to happen. It looked like he wanted off. There was no point keeping him around. His dreams to be at Bournemouth, apparently. Listen. It's been a very mixed window. If I was to rate out of 10, I think I'd give it a solid bang average 5. I want to say higher because of the players we've brought in, Kyogo and Abada and such, and I really like those guys, but from a bigger point of view and from a bigger perspective, you look at our squad now and you go, simply there might not be enough there. So that's where my worries come from, and that's why I give it a 5 out of 10. Anyway, I've been speaking for long enough. I'll let you go. I'll let you enjoy your day, because I think a lot of you will maybe want to be a lot more positive than me. Speaking too fast here. I'm rushing because we're at the end. I'm just going to end it. Like and subscribe. I'll see you all next time.